Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. Excited for today's guest. He's a marketing coach and he helps creative entrepreneurs charge what they're worth. Very excited to be talking to Mike Moll today. Hey, Mike, are you ready to rock?
I am absolutely ready to rock, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Perfect. We always start off with a good note. So tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
Sure. So I think the biggest piece of that story comes from what I was doing before this business. I was not a great student in any level of education. I finished high school, tried to go to college, did not work at all. And so I kind of started working in jobs that I knew I could get. So I was in sales for a bit. I worked for an insurance company for 6 years. And there was something about it that was just never right. I always felt like I was in the wrong place. And I had this ongoing feeling of desperation that like I'm not worth getting out. I don't have what it takes to get out. I don't like who would hire me. What could I even do? And I sat in that for years and years and years. I ended up having a panic attack in the parking lot of my office, which was a very eye-opening experience. I've never had one before, never had one since, but that morning was the morning that it happened. And I had this epiphany during that process that I would never work in a corporate office again. So I quit my job, not in the smart way, in the I have no backup plan, I quit way. Went on to try a bunch of new things, tried to create an app, landed as a marketing agency. Not quite sure how I got there. It was this weird sequence of events that brought me there, but it turned out to be the thing that I am very good at, and that is very obvious to me. So I think the biggest thing outside of the business success is just finding that out when I did, because I saw this version of my life where I was like potentially 20, 25 years later, like in a bad relationship with, just all the things that could happen if you're not doing what you should be doing with your time and energy and your passion. And so that's my biggest win, was moving into being an entrepreneur in that way.
Wow. And that's a great story because I think that, it's tough because we're sort of taught to have this security blanket of like, no, go get that secure job. Don't quit your job. You have to have a backup plan if you're going to do that, all that kind of stuff. And, it is very inspiring to hear people just quit, and the world didn't end. It ended up, you found what you were supposed to be at. And if you hadn't quit at that point, where would you be right now? Who knows, right?
Not living a dream life in Mexico. That's for sure. I don't know, who knows, but I have this, like, I'm so incredibly grateful for where I'm at and what I get to, like, how I get to spend my time and energy now. It's amazing. That was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah, right on. So now, okay, along that path, we're going to have some bad notes as well. Some things that aren't going to go very well. And especially in a circumstance like yours, where you didn't even have a backup plan, I'm sure not everything went as planned, right? So I'm wondering, is there anything that was just really, really sour that just didn't work very well? And how did you recover from it? And how can we avoid it?
Sure. I think the biggest one is I took on a project. I did it out of fear and being in a scarcity mindset at the time. Partially because I didn't know what to charge myself at the time. I was early on in the business. I could get a bunch of people to say yes at $500 a month, but someone to say yes at 5,000, let alone 15. I was like, I'm not that guy, right? And not having the background in it or the education, I had a lot of these doubts in the early stages of my business. I got offered a crazy contract, knew it was going to be a lot of work, but I just saw the price tag and I thought, okay, this is it. This is how we're going to level up. This is the evolution of it. Turned out I almost went bankrupt doing it. I had to bring on so many resources, and I had to bring on like so much time and attention and bandwidth to something that wasn't mine, that I wasn't passionate about. And it almost put us out of business. The worst day of my business life is I had to fire 3 employees. I did all that I could to not cry on the phone. Like, I was devastated that I was letting these people down, that I was cutting their legs out from under them in the way that but I couldn't do anything about it because I was trapped in this thing. And soon after, I pivoted and like I ran from the hills, for the hills, for the hills. I'm learning Spanish, so a lot of times my language is going back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, and just like the idea of like looking at the bank account and saying, oh boy, I don't know how these 5 people are getting paid. Like it's that time we actually have to let them go. And it almost led me to give up. It really, like I sat with it for a while, and like it was really hard to get out from under, and feeling just like a failure and all these components of it. It was really challenging. But yeah, I would say that.
Well, I think that's a really good one, because I find that a lot of us end up in that situation where you end up, like you said, a scarcity mindset, right? You're sort of looking at this giant project coming in and going, wow, that's going to be a lot of money. Maybe it's not my strong suit, but I'll figure it out. And
Yeah.
I think, like, I would like to get your impression on it though, like, because I've had probably just as many stories about people saying yes to something and then it ended up working out well, as I've had about people saying yes to something and it being totally wrong. So I'm wondering, like, can you look back and see what it was that made this one not a good move as opposed to a good move?
Lack of self-awareness at the time. If I had spent the time and really had like the depth of knowledge about, okay, these are the things I'm terrible at, these are the things I'm great at, I will only do things that I am great at. If I had been more observant of that at the time and actually deployed it, I never would have taken on the project that I took on. And as an entrepreneur, you have a level of cockiness because everything rides on your decision. Crashes and burns, it's your fault. Goes to the moon, your victory. So you have this, some people take it too far and it becomes ego in a bad way, but there has to be ego. You have to take responsibility for your decisions, so you have to feel strongly about them. And at the time, I wasn't making strong decisions based on what I knew how to do well. And so I think it was a lack of self-awareness at that time that created the friction. And had I just spent even an extra hour, map out the pros and cons, think about how I want to spend my day, all that stuff. I thought about none of it. I saw money and I went for it because I was cocky and I said, we'll figure it out. No problem. And we did, and we could, but at the detriment of like my mental health, bringing on contractors and trying to manage stuff I had no idea how to manage. Like it was a nightmare. So self-awareness.
Love it. Yeah. Okay, that's huge. So I mean, number one would be, if it's something, if this big contract is something that is huge, but it is within your wheelhouse, then it would probably be a good move. But if it's not even in your wheelhouse, well then, I think that's the issue. You ended up having to go out and hire people who could get this done, but of course those people are probably expensive, right?
Yeah.
And that's what ended up happening. Okay. Wow. Okay. Very, very good start to this interview for sure. No, so speaking of which though, I mean, getting a band, finding people to work with, that can be a challenge, and, you experienced it. I'm wondering, do you have any tips and strategies on how to put yourself around the right people?
Yeah, so there's two sides of it. I mean, I'm a big virtual assistant. Find someone who has a specialty to cover that task. Sorry to anybody that like prefers the employee method, but I don't think employees are a good thing unless you have the scale of work required of the exact same thing for that person to do. But even in graphic design, even in running advertising campaigns, like the different types of campaigns that you run, there's different strategies. There's different language that's talked about in the marketplace. In design, there's different styles, and like one person who could do every different style is bull. Like it's not a real thing. So I think finding the talent who specializes in the thing and have them execute versus saying, great, we're going to have, these full-time people and they're going to do, now you pay a little bit more to do that, but the job gets done right quicker. Project management and back and forth is less, and that is a savings in itself. So I think finding special, like hyper specialized people that are excellent at the thing you need done is really a good idea. But I think you still need to have an internal process and cadence to how things need to be done. So for example, like we have standard operating procedures for eBlast, for setting up a Google ad campaign. Like what are all those steps, right? We need to have a call with the client. We need to ask them these 20 things, right? Once we know that, we need to go do the research. We need to compile the research here. We need to write ads, see if they align with how our customer talks about their product. And then we got to get access to the website, Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, create an ad account. That like there's all these steps. But the problem is if you don't have a process, if you don't have a procedure for it, and especially on the creative side, if you don't have a guideline, a creative brief, a brand guideline, something to put them in the right direction, examples of stuff you like, that's it. But if you don't have that, you're letting people's previous experience, number one, and the way that they think work should be done, which is typically a bad habit for how you need it done. If you don't set those parameters and those boundaries and have those processes, it can be a real problem. And I hired a ton of people early on, and I just kept saying, why do these people suck? Why can't they just deliver like anywhere close to what I want on draft one? What's going on with this? And about 7 months and like 10, 15 contractors later, I was like, oh boy, this is my fault. And so we did. I went through. I had somebody watch me work on Zoom. How would you do this? And I would talk through the process. First, I go to this website. Then I search for this. The way I search it this way is because da, 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 da. And I had someone watching me, just taking notes on like, because my interpretation of how the work gets done is different. So it's got to be someone that doesn't know how to do it, so they can ask the right questions to make that process stronger. So what I'll sometimes do is I'll voice dictate step by step, and then I'll have them do the step by step, and I'll watch and be like, no, why did you do that? You said, well, this is what you said in the step. Oh crap. So you can do it that way, and then you refine the process, or you just have somebody watch you do it. That's been a really, really good way, because then they stop you. Hey, why did you XYZ? Hey, what's the point of that? What is this tool? Like, what is the purpose of this tool? And they're questions that you don't think about because you already know. And when you already know, for you to explain it, you're going to miss steps because things are obvious to you and we skip the obvious, right? We go into the granular detailed stuff, which is not what people need to actually learn a process. So.
Love it. Yeah, I agree with everything. I mean, especially because I work in the graphic design, web development spectrum, I guess, area, and I find that because we would consider ourselves sort of the expert in that area, and we like to find entrepreneurs that want to leverage that expertise. So I think that if you are the type that wants to be in control of everything, well, then that might not be the direction you want to go in. Maybe you might want to get an employee, because you can have unlimited revisions, right? Because they're your employee. But if you're going to be hiring an expert, I mean, the advantages to that are huge, obviously, because they're more, they can get things done on their own, rather than having to handhold them through everything. But on that other side, for certain processes in your business, I love what you just did there, where you will actually get on a Zoom call and you'll talk to someone that doesn't know anything about what you're doing, and make sure that they understand exactly what you're doing, because that can be helpful even in the case of hiring an expert, because they'll get to understand what you're doing. They can actually start to give you feedback now and say, oh, you did it that way, I see why you did it that way, however here you could do it this way too. Right?
Yeah,
that's really, really cool. Now, so you've got your band, you've got your team, everything's going well, you've got your product figured out, but now how do you go out there and get eyeballs on it? How do you find fans?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to give you the counterintuitive answer, because the people I work with are not the type of people that Google and Facebook ads are the number one answer. And not to say that they're bad. I've built an entire business for the past 8 years on the back of Google and Facebook ads. I've never used them for myself, which is kind of a funny thing. But I have, when we're talking about, roofing companies and dentists, like most people don't care who they go to. They just need that thing. So those things work well. But if you offer a higher ticket service where the person needs to feel comfortable with you and they need to believe in, you have to align from a value standpoint before they buy in, you can't do that with a Google ad. You can drive people to the site with a Google ad and hopefully your content tells them the story. But for me, and the way that I teach my clients is by using a cold video outreach. So the way that works is you identify the exact people that you want to work with. So my most recent client, she does SEO for cannabis companies. So she wants to talk to growers, distributors, anyone in the cannabis space. And so what we do is we connect with them all on LinkedIn, and then we record a custom video for each single person. Hey, Tim, it's Mike. Blah, blah, blah. Here's the spiel. It's about a 40-second to a minute and 20-second video. And we're doing like the labor of video outreach. The disadvantages, scaling is not possible. You got to just record them.
Yep.
But the experience that we had, actually, I had it as a lead magnet, and it was like a mini course, 20-minute course on how to do this, right? And so that's how I got this client. She downloaded it, and my second email was like, hey, like, let me know how it's going. She emailed me. She goes, hey, I sent 7 videos and booked 2 sales calls. Is that good? I'm like, yeah, that's good. You're good. That's fine.
Wow.
And then we started working together on the back of that. But imagine, think about, you know, you've got your business, you've got your website, you've got your social profiles. How much junk flies into your inbox? And LinkedIn is a cesspool. I hate going on LinkedIn now. But like email marketing from every different country in the world that wants a private label, sell you SEO, bring new leads for $99 a month. Like, they're doing that at scale. I get 40 of them a month at least. It's crazy. But there's something undeniable about someone getting a message on LinkedIn or on another platform, and they open the message and it's your face waving at them with a play button. You're going to click that button. You're going to see what that person has to say, and having it be addressing the person. I've had responses of people like, hey, I don't need this, but like, that's crazy that you sent me this. No one has ever done that before. And it works for anything. If you know who your ideal client is, like that to me, that's how to reach them.
Yeah. It's putting in the work too, because I mean, it is work to do that. And I think that's what would hold a lot of people back from doing it. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I like to look for. I mean, if it's something that not everybody's going to be willing to do, then you're going to have an edge.
Mm-hmm.
Right on.
Yep.
I love that. That's really cool. So, now what about the instruments? What about the, like, is this is one of the instruments, I assume, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What other tools do you use in your business to get success?
All of them. And what I mean by that is I test everything. So I will demo every software. So there's a website called alternative2.net. You just search on Google alternative 2 software. Essentially what it does is you say, okay, this is the tool I have. And then it's a crowdsourced list of alternatives to that thing. So HubSpot, and I like the CRM and the email marketing element. Great, here's 30 different options that are out there that you can actually take a look at. So I just go through them all. I test them, I try them, I see what plays well together. I use probably 10 tools in total to do everything. So I use lead pages for landing pages. It's like fast and crazy good, but it doesn't do email. So that goes in ActiveCampaign to do my emails. And then I use, I'm in the process of switching to GetResponse, which now does those together. Airtable is amazing. Airtable is like it's kind of like an Excel sheet, but it actually works as a database, and you can put like images and links. And so I use it as like my sales CRM. I use it for keeping track of my outreach, keeping track of my content. Even little tools like Crisp. I don't know if you, as I'm speaking to you here in Mexico, there was a vendor that went by with basically a siren pointing out of his car with this message on repeat. I don't know if that audio came through, but if it didn't, it's because Crisp is taking outside audio and condensing it and only listening to my voice and sending it through.
Oh, wow.
But I think my answer is really like experiment. There's so much SaaS, so subscription as a service. So like you pay every month, you get access to the tool. everything that you're doing in your business manually, you can probably get rid of 50% by using tools. Whether it's a, Calendly linking to Zoom, your booking thing, which creates a Zoom meeting that pings everybody's calendar. Like, that's a beautiful thing. That's emails back and forth eliminated. That's phone call. That's, hey, when are we going to do it? How am I going to get in touch with you? Right? You just send a link, it shows your availability. You click it, everyone gets a Zoom link. We're done. Like that alone is probably 10 hours a month of booking meetings back and forth. Like those, and then you pay what, $100 a year for it to save. It's a lot of savings, So I think it's just, for me, it's thinking about the processes and the things that you do over and over and over and over again that have a low value to the impact of your business. I call them $1 tasks. So they need to get done, but they don't have any improvement on like the visibility of your business or your revenue in any capacity. Find people and tools to take those off your plate, because there's a lot of tools that exist that can do most of this work you're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. And I think some people might have a hard time getting rid of those tasks because they are the checklist tasks that you're just like, okay, I'm busy, I'm doing stuff,
Right.
But you're 100% right. I mean, if you can save, the time, then you can use that time in another area of your business to grow it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's an exercise that I do that I highly recommend. I'll explain it super quick. So go through the last 30 days of your business and write down, in as granular as you can get, everything you've done in the last month. I checked my email twice a day. I responded to emails, took this amount of time. I sent invoices. I followed up with invoices. I booked this calendar meeting for this person, like all this stuff. And then make 4 columns, $1, $10, $100, $1,000, and take each task and put them in to the column that represents the value of it to your business growth. And what you'll find is 80% will be $1, 7% will be, 15, so 80%, 15%. And so you're okay. Now 95% of your time and energy and tasks and everything that you're doing is bucketed into stuff that doesn't move your business forward. There's 5% of those things, and it's usually 1% is your $1,000 an hour task that if I was just doing that all day, we would blow up. And then figure out how to get rid of all the other crap.
Love it, Mike. Right on. Well, then I am very excited for your guest solo. So tell me what's exciting in your business.
So I've had this marketing agency. It's been this beautiful remote thing that's taken me, 8 years of freedom from the corporate world. But last year I started offering marketing coaching to some people that I knew, just direct friends. And I found this massive passion for it. I never expected to be doing it. Coaching was never on my radar. But COVID kind of shifted how people were doing things, and just the conversation started happening. And now I'm in love with it. So that's kind of what I offer. But if you found the idea of doing the video outreach fascinating, and that's something that you want to give it a try, you can find it as a free mini course. I think the whole thing is like 26 minutes. So it's like super concise, no fluff. It's like really just like, how do I do this now? How do I send a video message today and get moving on it? And that can be found at go.mikemoll.co. And it's a download. It's a 3-step video, and it's super, super concise. I think it's like 27 minutes in total.
Love
if you want
it.
to check that out.
Love it. Go.mikemoll.com, and that's MOLL.co.
.co, sorry. CO. Yeah. Couldn't get the .com. There's a handsome Mike Moll that lives in Vancouver, Canada, that will not give me the .com. I've tried.
Oh well, and I mean, I suppose the .ca is not useful for you anymore either now that you're in Mexico.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll be moving back to Canada ever. I'm probably going to be floating around like South America for the next at least 10 years.
Also very inspiring. That's great. So right on. Thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Mike. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
Cool. To the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.